Here with reaction, we have Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley. Jonathan, let's get your take on the case. As an outside observer, following it as closely as you, I felt the evidence was overwhelming, incontrovertible. I thought I actually was pretty impressed with the prosecution in this case, in the case that they eventually did put on, but only because they were forced to.
Well, the prosecution did an admirable job. I mean, they were right on it. They had a very tight case. What was most impressive is that Abby Lowell, the defense counsel, put up a series of defenses that collapsed within 2 days. The prosecutors just methodically destroyed all of these claims. And in a normal case, that jury would have been out for an hour and come back with a conviction. I mean, this is very obviously an offense that was committed. But that's not what the real defense is. I mean, these, as implausible as these arguments are, they're really placeholders. The defense is playing to a Delaware jury. This is Bidentown. This is Wilmington. This is where the home of the Biden family resides. And I think they're hoping for jury nullification. And to add to that is a certain degree of sympathy for someone who had a tragic fight with drug addiction. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. There's no question, as in my view, that the government stuck the landing here. They proved the case. The question is whether they can get the jury to consider the evidence and not just who the defendant is.
What do you think the most, and I do respect Abby as an attorney. I think the one thing Hunter does have going for him is Abby Lowell, and I would argue there are not many great attorneys in D.C., but he is a good attorney for sure. And I thought he did as effective a job as he could, considering the hand that he was dealt, which was awful. With that said, do you think he was able to cast doubt in any area that sticks out in your mind?
No. No, the argument that was made by Abby starting out was maybe someone else checked the box. And they brought this Mr. Cleveland forward who just blew that out of the water and said, I stood there, watched him check that box and the other boxes and told him to take his time, which he did. He then said, well, he was really sort of bum rushed into buying a gun. And Cleveland said, no, he came in intending to buy a gun. And then there was this ludicrous argument that he had this sort of immaculate period of sobriety, or at least he was just drinking, not using drugs. And the government destroyed it and showed a text the very next day where he's trying to meet Mookie to score more drugs. And the day after that, saying that he's doing crack in a car. And he had witnesses come forward to say that when they saw him do crack, he was doing it every 20 minutes. So none of these things survived within 2 days. But again, that's not the point.
Do you agree with me last?
I'm sure the yeah.
I'm sorry,
Please.
Professor, I apologize. I thought you were finished. Do you agree with me that the real important issues that people should be concerned about, and this is a serious issue, the crime aspect and charging him here, but I think the more serious issues involve how much money that Hunter was making without experience at a time he's addicted to drugs, seemingly offering no services that we can identify as of now.
No, that's exactly right. What's amazing about this case is that it blew away their own defenses that the media has been repeating for years. They've been suggesting that Hunter Biden really was this incredibly competent, in-demand businessman and international expert. In his book and in this trial, it's clear that he was addicted and having a very difficult time managing the most basic parts of his life. But he was getting millions from these companies.
Yeah. All right, Jonathan Turley, Professor, thank you. Joining us now, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, Harvard Law Professor Alan Dershowitz. Professor, you're actually on a satellite tonight. I don't have you on your little, Zoom thing. It's great to see you a little bit more clearly. We'll start with you tonight. Let's get your take on the case. And do you agree with the last question I asked Professor Turley, which is about, this is low-hanging fruit as far as I'm concerned, considering the millions and millions of dollars that they brought into this family at a time he's addicted to drugs and with no experience, admittedly, in an interview on Good Morning America.
Look, the best thing that could possibly happen to Donald Trump is if Hunter Biden gets acquitted, because the evidence against Hunter Biden is so much more compelling. The legal issue is so much more compelling than anything against Donald Trump. And it will prove beyond any doubt that this is all about where the trial was conducted, that if you're Trump and you're tried in New York, it's automatic guilt. And if you're Biden and you're tried in Delaware, it's a different verdict. So the best thing that could possibly happen to Donald Trump is the acquittal of Biden based on all this evidence. It would also be a good thing for America. It would uncover and disclose the horrible double standard that our criminal justice system is going through. Maybe we could get some reform. Maybe we can do something about it. Right now, our criminal justice system is the laughing stock of the world, and I feel just so horrible about it. I've devoted 60 years of my life to trying to defend and explain a legal system based on neutral principles. That legal system is gone. The Trump case destroyed it. And if there were an acquittal in this case, at least it would expose it. Now, there may be a conviction in this case because the evidence is so overwhelming. That won't hurt Donald Trump. But if there were an acquittal, it would help Donald Trump enormously in the court of public opinion. Nobody would believe that the New York verdict was justified if there's an acquittal in this case.
There's such a difference in terms of the venue. It seems, Greg, that if you want equal justice and equal application of our laws, and you want constitutional order, it's all going to depend on the venue. It's all going to depend on how politicized and weaponized the prosecutor may be, and how abusively biased the judge can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it blows a hole in the notion constitutionally of an impartial jury. But here, the facts are so simple. The law is clear. The evidence of guilt overwhelming the defense argument that Hunter was in denial about his addiction, so that somehow forgives his lie. That is so absurd. But look, if a hometown jury is already in your back pocket, then Jonathan's right sympathy and jury nullification might actually work. And it doesn't matter that jurors are not allowed to negate the law. They do it anyway sometimes because secrecy of deliberations protects them. They can do as they please without consequence. But having said that, prosecutors do have an advantage. They don't have to prove that Hunter was high on drugs or addicted on the day he bought the gun, only during the general time frame. And that was proven conclusively through text messages, photographs, witnesses, his own words from the book he wrote. Hunter, it turns out, was the best witness against Hunter, which is precisely why he chose not to testify. He would have been completely shredded on cross-examination.
All right, predictions, Professor Dershowitz.
Well, I think the evidence is so overwhelming there could be a conviction, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw jury nullification. Remember, jury nullification cuts both ways. What happened in New York was jury nullification. The jury found an innocent person who committed no crime whatsoever guilty because of the judge's instruction and because the prosecutor made up a case. That was jury nullification with judge nullification. This could very well be a case of jury nullification as well.
Prediction, Greg Jarrett.
Well, this has been a no-nonsense, honest judge, a federal judge. Huge difference between this judge and Merchan. If the jurors follow their duty as they must, there will be a conviction.
All right. No outcome, be it guilty verdict, acquittal, hung jury, nothing will surprise me here, but we'll see. All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.